At the beginning, I thought it was like, there's no way I can improve this industry. I've been here for 6 years and it is not moving forward. In COVID, everyone had to go to the cloud. Like from one moment to the next one, they saw that the legacy systems, accounting, financials, even project management, they couldn't work if they were not in the cloud. One of the biggest challenges in this industry is the lack of adoption by corporates of the early stage technologies, right? Because they're not used to it, they don't know how to treat them, they don't know how to evaluate them, they run them through all the typical procurement process, and eventually they ended up either not adopting or killing them. To not get frustrated if you don't manage to get busy money. It might be some other financial options for your company. A lot of times founders don't understand the VC dynamics and they get a little bit frustrated when they get a no.
Mauricio, it's great to have you on. Why don't we start off with you introducing yourself and telling us about Zacua Ventures and your position there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm one of the founding partners at Zacua Ventures, which is a global fund focusing construction technology at the early stages, investing in three key areas for the industry, which are productivity, sustainability, and urbanization. We invest, as I said, on a global scale. We have offices in Spain, San Francisco, and team members in New York, Mexico, and Dubai. So we like to have this broad scope and focus at the earliest stage of startups from pre-seed all the way to their Series A, being like a thoughtful partner for them in their journey.
Why don't we start off with like, why do you guys enter the construction tech space? It's very challenging, but like, why invest in this space? And then also, what kind of an impact is the fund trying to have on the industry?
On a personal level, it was a coincidence, to be honest. But then on a professional level, I would say it wasn't just a coincidence. So I actually started my career working for a construction company for about 5.5 years, working on the job site in projects, infrastructure projects. So the smallest project that I've been in was $700 million. And I was doing cost measurement, financial projections, budgeting, and everything was very manual, just trying to get the information here and there. And then at the end of the day, my boss saying, okay, increase this by 20%, decrease that by 15%. So it wasn't any scientific and wasn't efficient at all. So eventually I decided to move on, transition, switch my careers. I did an MBA. And during the MBA, I started working with startups, which eventually led me to work in a VC fund from Germany, which eventually led me to met Cemex, the building material company, who was back then structuring their open innovation arm and focusing the construction industry. And I thought it was very interesting because it was a good mix about my experiences in the construction, in the VC and startup landscape. So I joined them 2016. We launched Cemex Ventures 2017, and I've been investing in construction tech ever since. So the evolution of being in Cemex for 5 years led me to partner with Juan, who was working with me at Cemex, and Vivin, who was leading the Hilti venture out of San Francisco. And we decided to make this fund focused on one side on startups on the early stages, construction tech, and so on, everything that we were doing before in our funds. But on the other side, which is very important, focus on corporate LPs. So all of our investors are big companies in the construction industry, going from material suppliers, engineering companies, construction companies, developers, and operators. And we understand what they look for and what they struggle with when they deal with startups. So we decided to bring a fund, the best of the both worlds, right? So the corporate side with all the value added that they can provide to the startups, and the VC side with the flexibility, with the autonomy in decision making, and the fast decision making for investments.
I love this story. It's really starting from really lower down and then climbing up your way throughout the industry. So you also have some field experience. You also really understand, I guess, the greater venture space, the startup ecosystem. I think it's very rare. In general, it's very rare and it's super important. And it also sounds to me like there's twists and turns throughout your career that drove you to get to this point. And that fact that you're not willing to just deal with the reality that something's inefficient or ineffective and that you want to try to solve that problem sounds like it's part of an essential part of your character. No, I don't
At,
know. It's
at
just
the,
interesting.
at, yeah, at the beginning, I thought it was like, there's no way I can improve this industry. I've been here for 6 years and it is not moving forward. So my initial answer was to switch careers and leave construction. And then when I found out this angle about construction tech, that's when I thought, hey, I know that there's inefficiencies. I know that technology, and I know that how technology is impacting other industries. So that was the normal path forward, right? Okay, let's apply these technologies to the industry that I know, that I've been working, that I understand the inefficiencies. And yeah, so far it's been a great journey. You can't imagine the big changes in the techs that we're seeing in the market from 2017 when we started investing now in 2024. It's completely different landscape, and I'm super excited about this.
Okay, so I want we dive into that because that's exciting. Like, what's the biggest changes that you've seen since 2017, or even since the time that you worked in the industry, the beginning, and how it is now? And how big of an impact do you feel it has? And do we actually have a chance to really revolutionize the industry, or how long will that take?
Yeah, indeed. In 2017, when we started looking at the most forward thinking construction companies, their innovation team was based out of their VDC teams, or a few people mm, genuinely interested in technology that they were deploying some early digitization software, or they were bringing the initial apps, the blank grids, the Procore of these words, right? They were just on their very initial steps or simple digitization. So instead of doing everything in pen and paper or Excel sheets, let's try to bring it in a specific app that can improve how the speed of the workflows, and everyone share the information very updated to all the different stakeholders. That was the very initial steps that we were doing. So the initial investments that we've done were in project management, in scheduling, in communication and coordination, and a flow of the information primarily from the office to the field. So making sure that the field had the latest information at the right time and everyone was working on the same basis. That started to evolve, and then little by little we saw that the second step was bringing technology to the site itself. So 360 cameras, data collection, and particularly not doing the same workflows as you did before, but actually improve these workflows. So not only digitize them, but actually start making them more efficient. And that was the second wave of innovation that we started seeing. Then COVID happened, and in COVID, everyone had to go to the cloud. Like from one moment to the next one, they saw that the legacy systems, accounting, financials, even project management, they couldn't work if they were not in the cloud. So the third wave of innovation that we saw was move everything to the cloud, and by moving everything to the cloud, interconnect all the different systems. So all make sure that all the information that you're capturing is on one single platform or one data lake, common data environment, you name it, but everything has to flow into the same space. And that's when they started realizing that if they were able to relay the information of the schedules, of their costs, of their financials, whatever, then they will be able to really take the best, how do you say, like the best analysis and the best information on what's really happening on the job site. And then the last wave of innovation that we're seeing these years, it's more towards optimizing workflows, predicting risks, a little bit more about how can you apply artificial intelligence to all that data that you've been gathering and normalizing, and automate steps, not make everything dependent on the data capturing of a human, but actually start automating that, and start as well automating everything that it's related with the execution of the jobs, right? So like robotics and stuff. That will be one of the key technologies. And of course, in the past few years, there's a big push towards sustainability. So all the type of technologies that can allow you to reduce that carbon footprint of the job site, it's a technology that is very accepted or at least looked for. So that's evolution that we saw since 2017 to where we are today in 2024.
So there's so much to unpack there, and I really think that's very valuable to see the process that you started off from the project management level all the way to the field, and then how you're changing workflows. I think that's very insightful. Also, for a lot of people who are interested in what this process looks like. So I think one of the things that are atypical a bit about the KUA is that you guys aren't typically a corporate venture capital fund, which is what we're seeing which is most of the companies today in this space, they open up a CVC. But over here, you guys have an LP that is similar, very strategic investors. So you guys have a bit of a mix, but you guys are still independent of them. It's not like you guys are their venture arm. How does that dynamic play, and how does that make you look at problems differently than a classic CVC? And how does that affect your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is one of the key differentiators of the fund as well, right? That we understood that one of the biggest challenges in this industry is the lack of adoption by corporates of the early stage technologies, right? Because they're not used to it, they don't know how to treat them, they don't know how to evaluate them, they run them through all the typical procurement process, and eventually they ended up either not adopting or killing them. But we also understood that the value that they provide once they adopt it, with the feedback, with the co-development of the product, and the expansion, of course, from a business development perspective, are key for the startup to succeed. What we wanted to bring in this fund was actually those corporate partners that are genuinely interested in new technologies, in adopting, in understanding them, and really understanding the impact, the potential impact that these technologies could have on their businesses, and really create that knowledge center and that really interesting space in which the startups can, with comfort, come and pitch and select a few places to pilot and co-develop and implement the techs. And also on our end, from a fund perspective, it would also really good to see how these dynamics plays before we take an investment decision, right? It underwrites a lot of tech risks at the earliest stages, and we also believe that's the value that that we need to bring to the startup ecosystem, right? So not just provide them with cash, with a financial investment, but actually sitting them in front of potential customers or partners to help them grow and scale. So that is the composition that we did. We're completely independent from all the corporates. The strategy, the financial investment, or the investment at the end, has purely financial objectives because we're a VC fund that needs to maximize the returns. But in the way, or in the path of optimizing or getting those financial returns, we want to provide a lot of strategic value to both the corporates, the LPs, and the startups, right? That by partnering them at the right moment, in the right strategies, in the right circumstances. So that is how what we decided to do in our investment model. And regarding our strategy, we have a concentrated portfolio strategy. We're not going to invest in more than 25 startups because we want to be hands-on. We want to really cooperate and work closely with them, help them navigate all these challenges that are very particular in this industry, and helping succeed. So that requires a lot of time from us, a big dedication to the portfolio. Hence, we needed to maintain our the number of startups that we invest pretty small, maybe compared with other fund.
Okay, so this is also really interesting and really cool. And I think it's also, when I'm looking at a lot of the funds in the ecosystem, it's usually, most of them tend to be corporate venture capital or smaller funds that maybe have one or two companies as construction tech companies in their portfolio. Rarely do you see a VC that's independent, that's also really investing in the way that you guys are. And I'd say, let's say I'm a startup, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm saying, I'm looking for that ideal fund, right? That I want to invest in. Is like, the added value here, like, what is the unique selling proposition, the added value that this startup could get? If he's here, what is it?
Yeah, I think that the first tip, so three things I would say. The first one is we know the industry, we know the challenges, we know the workflows, we know how the people on the job site implement, adopt, and deploy technologies, which is key. In many cases, we've seen amazing technology that isn't well structured to the workflows on the job site, and then they fail. Then the second thing I would say, that we're global, and we understand that the techs are more and more becoming more scalable at the earliest stages. So we support that global expansion whenever it makes sense for the startup to leave their home country and start exploring other countries or other regions. And then the third one, as we were talking before that, is a composition of our LPs, right? So we have the right network to help the startups test their MVP, pilot that, and once they're ready, go scaling that product among their customers and their potential future customers. So that those three, I would say, that are the key value proposition that we bring to the startups.
Okay, great. And so you touched on this, but Contech or right companies are becoming a bit more scalable, but still there's such a big challenge. If you're looking at almost any other industry, the growth that construction tech companies have is significantly slower, right? In terms of that, and a lot of times that's to do with a sales cycle and the ability to roll them out on a lot of projects. Like, how do you look at this problem, and what do you think the best way the industry could solve that? And
Yeah.
also, how are you trying to solve it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key point, right? We came out even with one of our most successful portfolio companies. They were growing nicely when we invested in them, but they weren't having this outstanding growth. And then we started working with them to start figuring out what could be ways that we can speed up adoption and then hence the scale of the company. And just with the minor tweaks, we understood how that technology could also add value the same way that the product was structured. It could add value to different areas of the same company, of the same customer, right? So not only going to department A, but being able to serve like other people on the job site and stuff. So with a few minor tweaks in the product, I would say that I was able to better accommodate to different areas or different processes of the company without really major changes in the product. And after that, they really start reducing significantly their sales cycle and even adopting other type of customers, smaller or bigger customers, just because of this switch in the way that they were structuring their value proposition. That was the key. So I think that you cannot apply this concept to all the startups that are struggling to scale, but I think that being very conscious about your customer, knowing them, knowing how the process work, and how you can better position your product and your value proposition to the specific nuances of the projects. I think that's one of the key things that you can do to scale. And then, of course, there are other things like really understanding your ICP, your ideal customer profile, especially at the beginning. That's key. Not try to go to all the different customers, right? Like big ones, medium ones, small ones. Now really focus on one that you believe that have the right characteristics to become your customer because they're really struggling with a pain point that you're addressing. That will be, I would say, number two. And number three, it's a go to market strategy. So really understand what's the best way to enter these customers. Again, sometimes it could be going a top down approach, sometimes it's a bottom up approach, sometimes it's through distributors that already are selling something to these customers. And this could be a very easy add on, like integrating, let's say, with, I don't know, Procore if all your potential customers are Procore users. And then with that integration, you already appear in Procore Marketplace. And then through there, your customers start integrating and giving all the data from Procore to your system. It makes it very easy for them to adopt your tech, right? Again, I think that these three examples are some ways about how can you navigate the challenges that you usually have with the sales cycles and on the scaling of your tech in your customers.
So I think one of the points that I really wanted to ask here was, what is the biggest issue that you're facing as a fund? Like, what's the toughest challenge that maybe doesn't let you sleep at night as well as you want to, or like, what concerns you the most and you're trying to solve, like, hardcore?
Oof, a fund has a is much more than just investing, right? So I would divide that besides the admin and ops, like building a team, getting our team engaged, and everything, and all the admin, I would say, of a typical company. We have three main areas. One, it's the investment. So understanding, selecting startups, going through due diligence and investing in the ones that have the biggest potential. Then the second one is portfolio management. So really working closely with our startups and support them in all the challenges that they have. And the third one will be a fundraising. We need to bring money, we need to bring investors in order to have money to invest. So there are many challenges that we're facing in different times of the fund. I would say that selecting the right opportunity among all the ones that we have in our pipeline is one of the key ones, right? Because it's not easy for us to take a decision when we really like three startups, but we can only invest in one. So we have to be very selective, and it's very hard to compare a company that we see in the Middle East, in Europe, and in the US, because the dynamics of the market are completely different. So that's, I would say, on the investment side, that keeps me a lot of nights awake. I wake up in the middle of the night and say, okay, then actually we should understand better this part of that startup. And I was like, okay, yeah, come on, we get back to sleep. But of course, like when portfolio companies are struggling with some issue and stuff, that's also another thing that we really struggle, because we really want to support them to overcome those challenges. And sometimes it's just a completely ad hoc strategy or work from us to give that support.
Okay. So I think it's just a good insight into the challenges that are like inherent to a fund. Next question is, what does the most ideal, just a general description of the most ideal LP, like the dream LP that could be part of the fund? What does he look like?
We have different type of ideals LPs based on the interactions that we have, but the ones that are super engaged in the startups that we're looking at, and they're able to test them quickly and understand their potential and provide good feedback, that's the ideal LP for us. And we have several of those in different parts of the value chain, right? With that, which is the interesting part, because at the end of the day, when you go and you see a technology that is deployed in the job site, and the customer is a contractor, it doesn't mean that's not relevant or interesting for the supplier, for the engineering company, or for the owner developer, right? Because they're all involved in what's happening on that project. So having different perspectives for us is key. So the ideal of B for us is the one that is really engaged. And whenever we shared some startups with them, they say, okay, this sounds interesting or not. They give us a quick answer. And then in 1 or 2 weeks, they're able to have a demo of the product, a few meetings, bring someone from their business unit to also talk with the founder and provide very quick feedback. That's ideal.
Okay, amazing. Now, what is the most valuable career advice that you learned along the way? And what's your tip for founders, like right now?
Along the way, advice that I've learned is, um, let me think. There's many advices that I've taken, right? I would say that on the deployment of technology, not get super excited, but how powerful the technology is, or how powerful the promises of that technology is, rather than how well you're applying and executing on that technology. I think that's one of the key things that we've seen a lot of founders that fall in love with their product, with their tech, and they forget about how their customers are dealing with the issue that they need to solve using your technology. So that is, I can't say how many times I actually understood this by failures of super good technologies that drastically fail. And advice to the founders, besides that was, you can take that advice as well. I would say that a lot of times founders don't understand the VC dynamics, and they get a little bit frustrated when they get a no, or when the VC doesn't move forward in the analysis of their tech. And this is something that, if they understand the VC dynamics, they would really know how to deal with this in a better sense. So the first one is the risk profile of the VCs. Most of the time, if we see that this is not a potential unicorn or something that can scale very fast, it doesn't mean that it's not a good technology, that it's not a good product, that it's not a good company, but it just means that it's not well aligned with the financial objectives that we as VCs have, right? So do not get frustrated if you don't manage to get VC money. It might be some other financial options for your company, right? And secondly, about how the VCs run their processes. It's not just about analyzing your and understanding your company and making an investment decision. It's analyzing yours, comparing all the universe of technologies that are addressing the same pain point, right? And understanding how your technology is better or worse positioned to address that particular pain point than some other technology that might have nothing to do with your product, right? And really, in that analysis, it's also about the other companies that we're looking at that has nothing to do with you, that are not your competitors, but are competing for my money as well. So in that process, there are many things involved, and really understanding this will help you just to at least to try to avoid frustration point you don't get the answer that you want and at the time that you want that answer.
Given we have to wrap up, there's so much more to ask, but we'll wrap up. And it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining the podcast. Thanks for sharing these invaluable insights.